Hello and welcome again to the All Skeptic. Today I'm gonna do a meme reaction, philosophical memes reaction. The memes are about anti-natalism, of course, my favorite philosophical subject. I assume all the viewers know what anti-natalism is, but I'll give a definition just in case. The voluntary refusal of giving birth under the supposition that life is harmful and it is immoral to give birth to children, because that would subject them to unnecessary harm. Okay. So let's start with the meme number 1. Alright, what do we have here? Then we start with this dark one. My parents in their 20s, I bet he'll grow up to do great things, and me, I can't wait for the sun to actually just explode. This is a very nihilistic meme, to be honest. It shows the optimism of your parents when they just get married and decide to produce you. But it shows the optimism versus reality of you. People would say this is actually pessimism. I don't believe that anti-natalism is pessimist in itself. I just believe that it's a realist by definition. Okay, because it's logical. Okay, so you can see here a very depressed fella in his 20s, even though he looks a lot older than that. But he just wishes the sun to explode. He just wishes to end it all, and he is a depressed person. It really shows the difference in mentality between you and your parents. God damn. But what is the difference? Why am I not, or why are we not similar to our parents? Where is the difference? I mean, your parents decided to get married and have children. Why are we not like them? I know that there's a lot of people just like their parents want to start a family. But what is the difference between us and our parents, or between us and the other natalists that just want to have children? Well, I don't know. I want to say intelligence, but this can't be the case, because I feel that there is more to say, more than just a matter of intelligence, because you can see a lot of intelligence, people with high IQ, but still want to have children. Intelligence plus suffering, presumably, but I still feel that there is more to say than just intelligence plus suffering equals anti-natalism. Intelligence plus critical thinking plus suffering? No. Does intelligence equals necessarily critical thinking? Therefore, anti-natalism if you add it with suffering? I don't know. I feel that there is a lot of things to say. We really need to have a study for anti-natalist people just to know where do they get their ideas from, and why are they not like procreationists that might be also intelligent, as much as intelligence, as much as critical thinkers, and they might have been through the same suffering as the anti-natalist people have gone through, but they didn't end up in the same conclusion. Why? I don't know. It's safer this way. Alright, one, this is a classical one. Just add in more people. You can see here pain and poverty, accidents and catastrophes, deaths, illness and disabilities and disputes, and all of those negative feelings that make life just bad. But people don't care about that. They just want to add more people to it. I'm laughing right now, even though it's such a negative topic to be talking about. I mean, it's the suffering of humankind. But fuck it. I just like to laugh about things. What are you gonna do? The nature of things. But my philosophical take about this would be, there's a difference between how we perceive things. An anti-natalist perceive those things, the pain and poverty and illness and wars and famine and stuff like that, as things that are not necessary, because reproduction is not necessary itself. But a procreationist see those things are necessary because reproduction for him is necessary itself. Procreationists and anti-natalists have a dispute between whether reproduction is necessary or not. Of course, for me and you anti-natalists, it's of course not necessary. Reproduction is not necessary for you, because we want to define necessariness. Necessariness is something like food, shelter, water, clothing. This is necessary. It's necessary for me to do stuff to maintain my existence. But I feel that the case is even more complicated than just that. Because if we add the argument of free will to this discussion, I must say that everything we do is necessary. Like, for example, this video that I'm producing right now is necessary as much as my production, as much as my parents getting married and producing me. The chain of causality just following its own way, its own determined way, and it's not gonna go anywhere else. So if I am an anti-natalist and I don't have children, me not having children is necessary. It's necessary to happen. And even if I drop this philosophy itself and I have children, me having children becomes necessary because I don't have free will. I'm an agent of causality. I'm an agent of the will, the determined will of all of the events that have happened before me that led me to either produce a child or refrain from reproducing a child. Either you reproduce, it's necessary for you to reproduce because we don't have a free will, because of causality. We cannot do otherwise because our choices are determined by the argument of us not having free will and everything is determined. If we do not have children, it's the same thing. It is determined for us to not have children. This is my take on this. I don't know whether you agree or not about it. Please tell me no in the comments. I would love to see other perspectives about this. Let's go to the other one. Hard to swallow pills. All human suffering could be prevented if humans just stopped reproducing. Well, this is a classic, yes, but there's a problem with that. It's a conflict of pleasures. It's a conflict of pleasures. Like for example, I have a knowledge of this. I have a knowledge that humans will just stop suffering if I ceased to give birth to children. Alright? It's logical. Suffering will not be if there was nobody to feel the suffering. Okay? But this conflicts with my pleasure of wanting to be a parent, of wanting to experience motherhood or fatherhood. So I can just say, screw this, screw this compassion with humans and not wanting them to suffer, and let me have a child of my own. It's a conflict between pleasures. That's the problem. Never ask a woman her age, a man his salary, an online anti-natalist which books on anti-natalism he has read. Well, you really don't need to read any books about anti-natalism to be an anti-natalist. I mean, it's just logical. If you accept the premises, you need to accept the conclusion necessarily. What are those premises? I believe I have already addressed them in one of my previous videos. We should not harm people or humans unnecessarily. Yes. Life is harmful. Yes. Bringing people into existence is not necessary. Yes. Therefore, bringing people into existence is harmful. Therefore, we shouldn't be doing it. I really recommend a book on anti-natalism I have already read. It's for David Benatar, To Never Have Been. It's an excellent book, actually. Experts worried about declining birth rates. You, like just like this, and you are an anti-natalist. You're being a hypocrite. Like, you act as though you are surprised or that the matter is actually have any critical significance to you. But it does actually. It reinforces your whole ideology. It makes you feel better. Oh damn, I like this one. What if your religion is true, but your children don't believe in it? I have already addressed this. Like, even if you say that we have an order from God to just have children, reproduce and populate the earth in His name, in His glory, and produce more children to serve God and serve the well-being of humankind and all of the animals, or all of the creatures. There's a problem here. You do not know whether your religion is true or not. Okay, but let's just give you this for argument's sake. Let's say your religion is correct, okay? But you do not know whether your son would actually be a believer or an infidel or a heretic or an atheist or anything like that. So you're making a dangerous bet right here. You're just making a dangerous bet. I mean, if he goes to hell, you are the one that's responsible for putting him in hell because you are the one who choose to bring him into existence. But this exactly what if. I believe anti-natalism stands on this conditional. What if? You want to have a baby? What if he gets sick and dies? What if something really bad happens to him? What if he gets kidnapped? What if he gets depressed in his 20s? What if he doesn't fulfill his life goals or something and commits suicide? Or there's just a lot of things that could just go wrong in this what if, because you cannot guarantee your son or your daughter to just have a perfect life, because all of the parents do the same thing. They just want to guarantee this, but they can't, and bad shit still happen. Bad shit still happen. And can't you see? Open your eyes, goddammit. Open your eyes. Next, birth control effectiveness. Condoms 99%, birth control pills 99%, and a bunch of pessimist philosophers like Arthur Schopenhauer and Albert Camus and Dostoevsky and such 100%. I mean, oh yes, of course. You really read about those philosophers. They really present such a negative view about the world and life. They really present such they have an acute representation about the horrors of life. I don't believe they are pessimists. I have already addressed this at first. I believe they are realists, because life is so bad. Life is so bad. You cannot know what will happen tomorrow. Wars and stuff. Future unborn children may end my ancestors in pain and suffering. Yes, it's the domino effect. Once you make the smaller will fall, all the other dominoes will just follow. And your ancestors did this. They made you suffer. And if you do this, extending the chain of suffering. Like, for example, if you have children, of course you cannot wait for your child to be an anti-natalist, and you have failed to be one yourself. Alright? So you'll be responsible upon a really big, long chain of suffering on your name. You give birth to your child gets married, give birth to his son, grandkid, do this stuff. It keeps going. It never ends. Suffering never ends. And you never escape the cycle. Damn. Look, honey, our child is saying his first words. Please return me to the void. Oh my god, oh my. Oh, this is very dark. Please return me to the void. Don't reach a day and just conclude that life is suffering once for all. You just don't do that. Like, for example, yesterday I was a normal dude. I didn't hold any negative belief about the human experience or life. Tomorrow I will be differently. I will say that life is suffering. I cannot do that. I believe that this argument just goes a bit by bit. The feeling, and your acceptance, because it is acceptance. When you say that life is suffering, you do not actually say this, but you accept it. Life is suffering because life keeps giving you arguments, like as if the human experience is just arguing with you your whole life. Life is suffering. No, there are joys. No, life is suffering. Look at this. You're hungry. You're poor. You're gonna die. You may go to prison. You may go to war. You may go to stuff. Your parents are gonna die and stuff like that. It keeps convincing you, but you just refuse to admit that life is suffering until one day you get convinced at last. Life is suffering. That's all. I accept. That's pretty much it. Well, what are you gonna do? This is life. But it doesn't have to be this way for the future generation. You don't have to go through the same shit that we have been through. And we are gonna be going through, because life carries on, but it stops with us. Maybe. When you understand Earth's suffering, but still want to have kids, I'm gonna pretend I didn't see that. Oh my god. Can we just apply this on all procreationists or not? Because I believe that there is a difference between people. Like, for example, a critical thinker lives inside more than he lives outside. A critical thinker lives inside his thoughts, inside his questions, inside his arguments, and his constant endeavor to figure out reality. But someone else is just living life as it is. He never actually questions reality. He's never a skeptic. He never actually wants to just know about the nature of life and stuffs like that. He's never skeptical. He never asks questions. This is definitely not a critical thinker. So what I believe is just a parent, a father or a mother just never ask these questions. Does life suffering? What is this? Does our children necessarily need to get through this themselves? And what about the suffering that I have been through? Should my son go through the same thing, even though I love my son and stuff like? I have a personal story myself. Like once, this is when I was back like a 19. Once my father said to me, "Life is horrible, my son, and you need to be tough." And I told him, "Really, Dad? Really? Thank you. Really, that's very considerate of you." And I have asked him right away, "Why have you given birth to me?" And he was very furious about that. I believe we didn't talk like for 2 days, but I have never done that after that because it had such a negative reaction. But you get my point, and I believe he got that as well. Hopefully, no children. Why? What if your parents had never had children? I would be blissfully absent from this conversation. All right, this is a nice one. This is actually relates to an argument that procreationists do, that if your parents never had children, you would never be here. But I can feel that there is such a great presupposition in here. The presupposition is that what are we having here right now, life is good. But I have a counter argument for this. What we're having right now is not good. Whether it had never begun to exist would be actually better. So there's a presupposition in this question. Like whenever a procreation says that if your parents had never produced you, you would never be here. Just tell them, me being here is not a good thing, all right? Because I'm experiencing joy, yes, but I'm also experiencing suffering. And suffering is much heavier than joy. Alright? Because the maximum amount of suffering is always more intense than the maximum amount of joy. And nobody wants to go through the maximum amount of joy to experience the maximum amount of suffering. It's just what it is. Next. This is a SpongeBob meme. Birthing new humans. And then this is a carnist anti-natalist. An anti-natalist who eats meat, birthing new other animal to rape and slaughter. Yes, I have already talked about this in my previous video. Should vegans be also anti-natalist, and that they are hypocrites if they're not doing that? And it goes also the other way around. If somebody is an anti-natalist but also eats meat, he's being a hypocrite, because vegans subscribe in the moral system that we shouldn't subject beings to unnecessary harm. If they do that, they should also subscribe to anti-natalism because it follows the same principle. And this whole thing would go the same way with anti-natalism. If they don't want to bring new people to existence under the fact that life is harmful and bad, they shouldn't also bring new animals into existence, because animals go through the same harm. A trade offer. I receive the burden of human consciousness. Goddamn. You receive a false sense of purpose in your monotonous existence. Damn. A parent might even have this idea or this knowledge that life is inherently bad, but still wants to have children though. Because why? The pleasures of parenthood outweigh what you would go through. He just do not care about you experiencing pain, because you experiencing pain doesn't have to do anything about him experiencing the pleasure of parenthood. It's a conflict of pleasures. It's just a conflict of pleasures, yes. I care about my pleasure. Why would I care about your own pleasure? Pleasure of not existing, because avoiding suffering is a pleasure itself. Like for example, just when you are thirsty, like very thirsty, and you drink water. I don't believe that there is some extra pleasure in there, but there is just pleasure of avoiding suffering. Because me being thirsty is intolerable, is painful, and just drinking gives me pleasure because I just serve my biological need. If somebody doesn't exist, he doesn't experience joy and pleasures and all that, but at the same time he doesn't experience suffering. All right, so he avoids suffering, and by avoiding suffering, he experiences pleasure. But you want to say there is nobody to experience pleasure in there, but there is also nobody to experience suffering, right? Let's go. Save the earth, don't give birth. I don't believe this is actually a meme. It's just like a symbol for anti-natalism or some type of logo. People who are very concerned about climate change, they might as well just try anti-natalism. Because it is us humans who pollute the earth. It is us humans who do all of those type of stuff, who endanger the animal kingdom, who endanger the environment and all of that. Try anti-natalism. It's good. But you would say that if we have stopped bringing children, there is nobody to just profit or benefit from the good environment that we will produce by not bringing new people to existence. Yes, this is a good argument. But again, even if a person lives in a good argument, he will still suffer. Because logically, even the best life is inherently bad. Psycho parents desperate for symbolic immortality. Their child-free offspring. Goddamn. Oh well. Happens to me as well. I have a mother who constantly tells me that she wants grandchildren, and I'm being an anti-natalist. Of course, I'm not telling her that I'm anti-natalist, but I'm telling her that I don't have time. They're child-free offspring. But what is symbolic immortality? I believe this is biologically rooted in us to just give birth to children, because they will remember us and our name shall be extended in timeline and stuff like that. But individually, in terms of the individual, it doesn't matter at all, because the individual still suffers, and suffers alone, inside his head, or physically. Anyway, the suffering exists. And the psychological one is much more devastating than the physical one. Because the physical one, if it was much, the body will die. And if it was less, the body could endure. But not for the psychological. The psychological might be very much, and you're a healthy person, but still suffers inside. Problematic. The myth of consensual. The myth of consent. I consent, but I don't consent. Isn't there somebody who forgot to ask? Oh yes, there is a counter argument for this. Like, we do not bring people, we do not bring humans into existence because there is nobody to exist until he do. I cannot bring Jake from existence because he doesn't exist. He doesn't exist until he does. Jake doesn't exist until he does. But the problem here is that there is a knowledge. That there is a knowledge of you that you know that life is inherently harmful, but you still want him to be inside this puppet show, inside this horrible universe. You know how things are, but you still want him to be formed in here, not to be born, because the I cannot be born, the self cannot be born, but the self is to be formed. The self cannot be born, because if the self is born, it means that the self was actually even before the event of being born. But the self is being formed through experiences, which form memories that mold and shape our personalities. Were you born without consent? Well, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Well, if you are born without consent. Of course, you are born without consent. I do not believe that anyone could compensate you, but by anything. You could never be compensated, even with the whole world. Suffering is just a part of life, the dominant part of life. I could say even like 90% is just suffering. Is this too much? Oh, well, rhetorical, whatever. But nothing could ever compensate you. If you compare your state right now as an existent, sentient being, yourself not existent at all, man, it's way different. The best life is bad. Nothing could ever compensate you. No matter your background, gender, or ethnicity, life is terrible. Life is inherently terrible. For Asians, white people, black people, Latinos, whatever. Life is inherently bad. Very pessimistic, very dark. Are we clueless about morality? This meme actually doesn't relate to anti-natalism, but let's say something. What would you do as an anti-natalist? Would you just pull the lever so the train would go and murder just one person to save 4 people, or 5, I don't know, like 5 people? Or would you let things go as you want? As an anti-natalist, I believe I would just let the train take its normal course. I won't do anything at all, because like 5 people would bring more people to existence. You can't think, but anti-natalist doesn't want a kid because the kid will suffer. Child-free doesn't want a kid because the parent will suffer. Perfect couple. Yes, there is a difference between anti-natalism, it figures, and being child-free. Like being child-free, you don't want to have kids because you're trying to avoid the burden of having kids or all the financial responsibilities and all of that. But anti-natalism subscribes actually to a moral system. You don't want your children to be to suffer in life. Perfect couple. But I could take this to another different level. Like I could say that an anti-natalist is also a child-free, because at the end of the day, the pleasure of being anti-natalist and the pleasure of not bringing my son to existence and not seeing him suffer is my own. From not seeing my son suffer, I derive pleasure from not seeing my son suffer and not putting people into a harmful existence. So avoiding suffering is pleasurable, because I know that I would suffer if I see my child suffer, knowing that I was the sole responsible agent for that particular suffering. So avoiding suffering is pleasurable, and who feels this pleasure? It is I. Therefore, everything just revolves around my ego. So child-free revolves around their ego. They want to stay away from the responsibility and the burden of it. And anti-natalism also, they want to stay away from the responsibility of psychological suffering. It's the same, because everything revolves around the self. Everybody is selfish, or nobody is. Everybody is selfish. You cannot be not selfish. You just can't. If I give you something, if I share something with you, I do it for pleasure. There's pleasure in me just sharing something with you. If I don't do it, I get the pleasure from keeping my thing to myself. There's always pleasure at the end of everything I do. Therefore, I'm always selfish, or I'm not. Vegan anti-natalists, world's greatest unsung heroes. Yes, I've already talked about this in my other video, if you have watched it. Vegan anti-natalists, their philosophy is consistent, they're logical, they just want to eliminate suffering for both humans and animals alike by not being responsible for bringing them to existence at all. Would you like to have children one day? Okay, but no longer than that. I've never actually spoken about this, but I can also say that there are some type of people that don't care about this morality thing or this compassion thing or at all. They just hate kids. Oh, like this. This is exactly what I was talking about. If you bring this to this, F you. The crying of children is compassionately very, very bad, because if a child cries, that means, oh my God, a child cries, it means he is already experiencing suffering. and he is not a teenager yet. Anti-natalist presents well-formed, rigorous argument against procreation. Natalist, I do with the gene guide. There is pleasure in conforming to biology. There is pleasure in doing as biology, as life demands, and as our genetic code demands, having sex and mating and having children. There is pleasure in there, I'm not gonna lie. But we have minds now, we have developed complex thinking systems that allow us to just stop doing things, even though they are pleasurable, just because they seem to be incorrect. The gene demands also rape and slaughter and killing as well, but we stopped doing that. So the argument follows. If you don't have children, you will die alone. A mad Indian lady. I believe everybody dies alone. Even if you are surrounded by your family and all of your friends, you still die alone. Because the suffering and dying is a very subjective, individual experience. What does it mean if you are surrounded by family in your deathbed? It will make it even worse, knowing that you will leave them. It doesn't make any sense. Not scary, not scary, not scary. I don't believe this is scary. It's just it's a pity. It's a pity. When you see a child, you just imagine how many years this child has gotten in this life. It's bad. It's bad. Suffering ahead. Behold, you will be forced to work without your consent. Slaver, owner, criminal, apparent. Yes, you do a lot of things against your will. I mean, just like having a job. Do I need to have a job to stay alive? I don't want to even to be produced into life. Now that I'm alive, I have a biological need to stay alive and support my well-being, but it's not free. I need to work for that. Fuck. No, my son, I have produced you to existence. Now you have to work your ass off until you die. Isn't that great? Pro-lifer. And what if you were aborted, huh? Me, imagine I wasn't born. There's a problem of logic here. If you imagine you were never born, you would never exist to imagine not being born. Therefore, this event would have never happened if you are never born. It's circular, you see. It goes in a circle. She will have a good life. Why do I exist? Yeah. Bills, work. Stuff like that. Yes. You need to pay for shelter, you need to pay for food, you need to work. Life is too bad, man. Life is fucking bad. He's about to say his first words. Your selfish desire for symbolic immortality brought me here to suffer, as an ornament to be owned and displayed. Yes. Never fool yourself and say that I love my parents, or my parents love me. Because this is bullshit. Nobody loves you. Everybody loves just themselves. It's biologically impossible to love somebody else, because by doing something the brain rewards us by chemical rewards, dopamine or oxytocin or serotonin, whatever, just for us to keep doing something. If I have a child and I take care of the child, it doesn't mean that I love my child. It means that I'm obeying nature. I'm just obeying nature. I'm just obeying my genetic programming, and by doing that I get dopamine, I get pleasure from that. Therefore, I love only myself. Nobody loves you. Hey, anti-natalist, why do you always wear that mask? Crippling depression. Let's keep this on. Oh, damn, yeah. I believe this is a common thing between all anti-natalist people. They have all gone through some type of depression during their lifespan. Yeah. This is the argument of anti-natalism. A little bit of joy or pleasure doesn't amount for the tremendous suffering that you will go through. It doesn't worth it. Someone gets pregnant, everyone, oh my God, congratulations, the unborn baby. Slavery clause, 20 years. It's not just 20 years, it's 60 plus years. Subject your child for 60 plus years to suffering. Not everybody see it this way. This is where the problem is. there are religious people, unrealistically optimist people. There are all sorts of people. Other way, we would have gone extinct a long time ago. But people are different. Well, I think that's pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, I will make another one or another topic like on this type or format of video, like reacting to philosophical memes. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next one.